And we're back. Chapter 2, Perek Sheni, page 32, Lev, in Tractate Shabbos. Name of the chapter is Bameh Madlikin. So we ended off yesterday with a Mishnah that spoke about 3 things that women die at the time of childbirth, and the 3 things were not careful. If they're not careful regarding the laws of Nida, laws of Chala, and kindling the Shabbos candle. These 3 things. So the Gemara says, why? To start off with Nida, Rabbi Yitzchak says because she rebelled against God through the law. She rebelled against God's law through the chambers of her womb. So therefore, she's stricken in the chambers of her womb. So the Gemara says, okay, what about challah and candles? So Chisda said, one certain Galilean said it before, expounded before Chisda, and he said, Hashem says, I have placed a certain amount of blood to sustain the soul of man. I have cautioned you concerning matters of blood, the laws of Nida, as well. I've also called you first, and I've warned you. I have cautioned you concerning matters of first. What is first? Chala, that you're taking the first portion, you put it away. The neshama that I've placed in you is called a candle, and I have cautioned you concerning matters of candles. If you fulfill these responsibilities, all is well. If not, I will take back your souls. Why specifically the time of their birth, childbirth? It says the ox has fallen, sharpen the knife. It says when you try to slaughter an ox. So back in the day they didn't have machines, so they had to somehow subdue the ox to the ground. It says, but once the ox is already on the ground, that's the time to sharpen the knife. So similarly, once a woman is giving birth, the Gemara says that giving birth is like 50% chance, God forbid, not to make it. So it's like the oxen has fallen, sharpen the knife. There's more of it's time of danger. There's more chances of dying. That's the interpretation of Rava. Abaye Omar, where I said, why are these 3 things that can happen in the time of birth? Tapish teus amosa bechad machter olev. Let the maid increase her rebellion with 1 strike of the rod. It will all be punished. Which Abaya means by it, rebellious servant can be punished for all his untoward acts, meaning every negative things that he did, in 1 fell swoop. So too the reason women experience danger in childbirth is because Eve sinned and ate from the tree of knowledge, in that same window of vulnerability, that she is vulnerable, then they can be punished for other things as well. So it's like 1 shot killed 2 birds. Everything is being paid in one time. All bills are being paid in 1 shot. So that's a Abaye. Leave the drunk alone. He will fall down on his own. Which means if one wishes to cause a drunk to fall, he doesn't need to push him. He will fall on his own accord. Similar idea holds true here. Once a woman conceives, she will naturally proceed towards time fraught with danger, the moments of labor and childbirth. If God hears her prayers, He will deliver her through this process safety. If not, she will succumb to the natural dangers of childbirth, falling our own accord. So Ma Ukva Omar Rayo Chigro Veizuriaton. The shepherd is crippled and the goats are running. When the shepherd is not functioning, the goats are running. Abav Chutra Mili, at the gates of the pen are words of reproach, words of rebuke. And at the door to the quarrel there is judgment. Rav Papa Omar Abba Chonvosa Nefishi Achi Umerachmi. At the door to the store there are plenty of brothers and friends. Abav Bizyone Lo Yachev Lo Merachmi. At the door of humiliation there are neither brothers nor friends. And men, when they are searched for misdeeds, at what point are men most vulnerable to retribution for their sins? We said women are most vulnerable in the time of birth. What about men? At the moment that they are crossing over a bridge, Geshem Sulos Gemara says that's it, only that time when they cross over the bridge. They pass over a bridge and no more. Are there really no other times a man is especially vulnerable to heavenly judgment? Eima Kain Geshem. So say that this is what Rish Lakish meant. They are vulnerable in times like crossing a bridge, in all comparable moments of danger. Rav would not cross a river on a boat upon which an idolater was seated. Omar Dilma Mipkid Ledino Ale. Perhaps heavenly judgment is due to be visited upon him at this time. Umit Pisino Ba'adei, and I will be seized in a calamity along with him. Shmuel would not cross a river except upon a boat that had an idolater sailing upon it along with him. He did the opposite. Omar Sitno B'srei Uma Lo Yisholet. You said the Satan does not have power over two nations at the same time. Rabbi Menashe, before boarding a river boat, would check it for leaks, and then he would cross the river upon it to make sure that the boat is safe. Rabbi Menashe has his own reasoning, and he said a person should never stand in a place of danger. Shouldn't go to a dangerous place. And he would say, maybe they will perform a miracle for him. Maybe they will not perform a miracle. And even if they will perform a miracle, maybe they will, his merits will be depleted. They deducted from his merits. The miracle does not come without his paying price. So it's better not to rely on a miracle. Yaakov said, after he was saved from Lavan and Esau, so he says, Katointi, I have been diminished by all the kindness and by all the truth that you have done for your servant. We see that Yaakov feared his merits were diminished by all the kindness God had already bestowed upon him. Rabbi Zera, on days that had severe south winds, would not go eat and walk between the palm trees. So he was worried that the trees would come down. Strong south wind. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Breder Rav Yehuda Loilom Yevakesh Odom Rachum Shorech. A person should always pray that he shouldn't get sick. Always ask for mercy from God that he not become ill. Shim Yechle. For should he in fact become ill, they would say to him, okay, you want to be saved, bring the merit. gotta pay now to get healthy. So it's better off to pray not to be sick. What is the meaning regarding the commandment of the Torah that you need to build a makkah, you need to build a fence when you build a roof, at your roof? But the pasuk says if a fallen one falls from it, why are you calling him fallen? Didn't fall yet, you're calling him fallen. The phrase from here implies that it is up to him to bring evidence of his worthiness to live. What does ki'ipol anefel mimeno means? The victim described in the pasuk as the fallen had been deserving to fall from the time of the primordial 6 days of creation, since he committed in his lifetime. For indeed, he has not yet fallen. And the pasuk calls him Neifel. The verse calls him Neifel. Rather, this teaches
you need a sitter?
That benefit.
No, I have everything.
The benefit is imparted through one who is meritorious, and harm through one who is guilty. So, what is the schus? The schus is to make sure that no one is going to be affected, and the chayva, the person that someone would fall off his roof. It means that he is chayav. He has no merit. That's why someone is falling off his roof. Tanu Rabban. If someone became ill, God forbid, and is leaning towards death, so they said to him to say vidui, to confess. For it is the practice of all who are condemned to die to confess before they are seized by death. Or the mitzvah shuk, when a person sets out to the marketplace, should appear in his eyes as if he were handed over to the officer of the Roman court and escorted to stand to trial. Why? It says in 24, it says, the marketplace of old was a dangerous place to traverse. So it's a dangerous time. Adversaries, creditors, debitors, or litigants would occasionally meet up with one another in the marketplace and settle their disputes violently. So it was really like a boxing ring. Sometimes back then, the marketplaces. It says clearly they would settle their disputes violently. And that's Rashi's interpretation. When one entered the marketplace, he was more vulnerable than usual to heavenly punishment for his misdeed. So, in other words, he entered a dangerous zone back then when he went to a marketplace. So he said, the rabbi said, when you go into the marketplace, you have to think as if you were given to you are being escorted to stand to trial. If someone experiences even a mild headache, you have headache, it should appear in his eyes as if they placed him in chains. If one becomes so sick that he is bedridden, it should appear in his eyes as if they brought him up to the scaffold to be judged. For anyone who ascends the scaffold to be judged is in mortal danger. If he has powerful advocates negotiating on his behalf, he will be saved. But if not, he will not be saved. Who is the powerful advocates? Ve'elu hein prakritin shelodo. And these are the true advocates of a person. The forces that can save him from death once he becomes seriously ill, tshuva u'maisim tovim, repentance and good deeds. And even if 990,
Accusers.
right, and even if 999 heavenly accusers are asserting his guilt, so everyone says he's guilty. 999. And one heavenly advocate asserts his merits. Nitzod. That's why we say in the Kaporis, this is the verse we say, Im yesh olav maloch melitz echod mini elef. If there is an angel over him, intercessor, 1 out of 1,000, la'agid lodom yoshoy vayechunenu, to declare for man his righteousness, then God is gracious to him. And he says, redeem him from descending into the pit. Even if there are 999 indicators of guilt set forth by that one angel, he gives 999 accusations and arguments of guilt, but one counterbalancing indicator of merit, the person will be saved. Shenema melitz echod meni elef, an intercessor, 1 out of 1,000. For 3 transgressions, women die while giving birth. Says, for those transgressions, women die young. Women can die young for the sin of washing their children's excrement from clothes on the Shabbos. Some say because they're calling the Holy Ark in the synagogue the chest. What's the problem with that? So it says that at that time people used to use the word Arna to refer to their household chest. Calling the Holy Ark by this name indicated a lack of respect to the Ark and a casual attitude towards spirituality in general. The Maharal is discussing this. Tanya, on account of 2 sins, ignorant people die before their time. Number 1, on account of their calling the Holy Ark the chest. On account of their calling a synagogue, they call the synagogue the hall of the people. So again, it's 2 indicators for a lack of respect. Either by women, they're calling the ark lack of respect to Shabbos, they wash the clothes on Shabbos. Number 2, they're calling the ark Arno, just a chest, like they would call the house chest. And by Ameoretz, by ignorant people, they would call the Aron Kodesh also a chest. And they would call the Beis HaKnesses, they would call the synagogue Beis the whole of the people. Rabbi Yossi says 3 inspectors of death were created in regard to a woman. And some say 3 bonds of death were created in regard to a woman. Nido chalo and the kindling of lights on the Shabbos. It says in 36, the second time I refer to these sins as bonds of death, factors that can cause death to bond or attach itself to a person before his time. Next, Chadu Rabbi Elazar, one of these Tanoim accords with Rabbi Elazar, Chadu Rabbanan, and one of them accords with the sages. The Tana who calls the sins bonds of death, sins that are before one's time, confirms the view of Rabbi Elazar, who stated above that these sins can bring about death at an early age, but not necessarily at moments of particular danger. And the Tana who calls the sins inspectors of death, sins for which one is inspected in times of danger, confirms the view of the sages, who stated above that a woman is liable to die for these sins while in childbirth, because now she is more prone and susceptible to danger. The preceding series of the Brises dealt with the consequences of laxity, being relaxed in various facets of observance. Another Brise now touches on a related point. Tanya Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer. Shimon Gamliel says, Hilchos Hekdesh Trumas Umaisus, the laws of Hekdesh, consecrated items, Trumas, tithing, Truma and tithing, Hein Gufer Torah, are indeed among the fundamentals of Torah. Going to page 32b1. Although it's the fundamentals of Torah, they were given also to the Am Ha'oretz, to the common folk. Tanyo Rabbi Menashe Neimer B'av Nedorim Meiso Isha Shelod. Rabbi Menashe says, for the sins of unfulfilled vows, a man's wife dies. Shenemar, if you don't have anything to pay, why should he take your bed out from under you? For the sin of unfulfilled vows, a person's children, God forbid, die when they are young. Do not allow your mouth to cause your flesh to sin. And do not say before the agent that it was an error. Why should God be angry at your voice? This is from Koheles, King Solomon. And destroy the work of your hands. What is the works of men's hand? One should say there are a man's sons and daughters. The verse is saying that one's children can suffer if one allows his vows to remain unfulfilled. For the sin unfulfilled causes, God forbid, someone's children to die. These are the words of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Menashe says, "Ba'avon bitul Torah." Children die for their parents' sin of neglecting Torah study. All is well according to the one who says that they die because of nedorim, like Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, because of unfulfilled vows. For the source for this is what we stated in Pasuk in Koheles. Atit en spicho, lachti b'sorecho. But according to the one who says that, God forbid, children die for the sin of neglecting Torah study, what is the verse for this? So the pasuk says, "Dichtiv lashav hikesias b'nechem." There's a pasuk in Yirmiyah. I have in vain have I smitten your children. He interprets this to mean that they were stricken alis kishav because of matters of falsehood, wasting time. Rabbi Yehuda Anosi Hainu Rabbi. Rabbi Yehuda Anosi, who is he? Is Rabbi, which is a short of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Ba'avon Nedorim Koma. Rabbi said that children, God forbid, die for the sin of unfulfilled vows. Yet this same person, Rabbi Menashe, stated in other baita that it is neglected of Torah study that causes the death, God forbid, of small children. So Bosa the Shomer Rabbi Elazar Shimon, when Rabbi attributed children's death to unfulfilled vows, it was after he heard this idea from Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon. Before this, he had attributed it to neglecting of Torah study. Pligi bar Rabbi Rabbi Yossi, Bar Abba and Rabbi Yossi disputed this point. One said because of not affixing mezuzah to the doors. And one said that they're liable to die because of their parents' sin of neglecting Torah study. According to the one who says that the children are stricken for the sin of mezuzah, the verse in order to prolong the days of your children is expounded to shed light upon the passage that immediately precedes, not upon the passage, meaning that of affixing a mezuzah to one doorpost, but not upon the passage twice removed from it in precedence, the passage that appears 2 sections earlier in the scriptural text. And the one who says that the children are stricken for the sin of neglecting Torah study holds that the pasuk is expounded to shed light both upon the passage that immediately precedes it and upon the passage twice removed from it in precedence. 2 psukim earlier. Pligeba Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda argued this, disputed this point. One said that small children are liable, God forbid, to die for their parents' sin of failing to affix a mezuzah, and one said that they may die, God forbid, for their father's sin of failing to wear tzitzis. The Torah requirements to wear tzitzis, ritual fringes, applies only to garments that have at least 4 corners. Rambam's in Ilchos Tzitzis, chapter 3, verse 1. In this connection, Tosfos Yeshenim makes the point that our Gemara indicament of people who failed to wear tzitzis applied only in the days of the Talmud, when 4-cornered garments were commonly worn. In later eras, when such clothing was not in use, the fact that a person was not wearing tzitzis would not constitute a transgression, because really, halachically, you only have to wear it if you have it. Tosfos Yeshenim, or if you're wearing a 4-cornered garments. Tosfos Yeshenim adds that even in times when 4-cornered garments are not commonly worn, it is nevertheless advisable to buy such a garment for oneself and place tzitzis upon it. By donning such a garment, one allows himself to fulfill a mitzvah that otherwise might not apply to him. So it's also known as a mitzvah kala, an easy mitzvah that you can always do just by wearing it.
The mezuzahs, you got to make sure that I had a friend. He's checking to make sure they were on tight. Otherwise, he said he gets a tsar from it.
Yeah, so many incidents where people were facing different kinds of challenges, and they wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told them to check the mezuzah.
Right. Barheim, Barheim and
Now, according to the one who says that the small children, God forbid, may die for the sin of mezuzah, the reason is understandable. You shall write them on the doorpost of your home, and immediately after this it is written, in order to prolong your days and the days of your children. So they have the juxtaposition. The Torah indicates a link between the preset of mezuzah and the length of one's children's lives. According to the one who says that it is for the sin of tzitzis that one's children, God forbid, may be stricken. My time, what is the reason for saying this? So we have a support for mezuzah, because it says leman yirbu emechem ve'venechem. What do you say about tzitzis? Amar Rav Kana v'yitem ashil amori dichtiv gam bichnofayich nimtzu dam nafshis evyonim nekim. It's the pasuk in Yirmiyah, which says, also in the corners of your garments is found the innocent blood of pure souls. Interpreted homiletically, the pasuk implies by neglecting a command involving the corners of your garments, the innocent blood of pure souls, small children, will come to be spilled. God forbid. According to the one who says that children die for the sin of mezuzah, the source is also from here. Pasuk in Yirmiyah chapter 2 verse 34, it says, I have not found it by a secret search. This indicates that they made their doorways like tunnels. What does that mean? It says in 21, they made their doorways like tunnels. God is saying, so to speak, that He has found the doorways of homes lacking. They have no mezuzahs upon them, just as if they were tunnels, passageways that have no doorpost whatsoever. For all of these sins, the pasuk concludes children, God forbid, will be stricken. Pasuk for all these sins refers to the transgressions that have been enumerated, and implicitly refers to the punishment mentioned earlier, God forbid, the death of children. Amar Rish Lakish ko'azor b'tzitzis, whoever is careful with the precept of tzitzis, zoichu mishamshin loy shnei alofim u'shmoinim avodim. If you are careful with the precept of tzitzis, shall merit to have 2,800 servants cater for him. 2,800 servants cater for him. Shenema koyomar avay tzvokis. Pasuk in Zechariah, chapter 8, verse 23. Said the Lord of hosts, koyomar avay tzvokis, bayomim oheimu asher chziku asor anoshim kol shonis hagoyim. In those days it shall come to pass that 10 men of all the languages of the nations shall take hold. 32b3. They shall take hold of the corners of the garments of a Jewish person, saying, Neil choimochem, we will go with you. The prophet foretells that in the Messianic era, Gentiles will hear that God is with the Jewish people, and they will travel to the temple in Yerushalayim in vast numbers to worship God. In this connection, the pasuk states that 10 men of all the languages of the nations shall take hold of the corners of the garments of a Jewish person. Noting the reference to corners of garments, the area where tzitzis are placed, our Gemara expounds the passage this way: as a reward to one who faithfully observes the mitzvah associated with the corner of a garment, tzitzis, 10 men from each of the 70 nations of the world, 700 men, will take hold of each 4 corners of his garment. This person will be served by 2,800, 4 times 700 men in all. Okay. The Gemara gives a mnemonic for the various discussions that follow. Siman, Sonei Chalo Truman Igzeles, hate Chala, stolen Truma, Dina Shavua, Shipuchta Giluya Venavlusa, judgment and oath, spilling, revealing, and obscenity. The Gemara lists various consequences or punishment that may ensue for different transgression. Tanya Rabbi Nechemia ba'avoin sin aschinam, the sin of baseless hatred. Over here it says gracious, gratuitous hatred toward others. Meriva rova b'sach beisos shel adam, quarrels proliferates within a man's household. Ve'ishtem apelas nefolim, his wife give birth to stillborn children. Uvano v'nesos shel adam mesim shektanim, and a man's sons and daughters, God forbid, die in their youth. Rabbi Lezer, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, says, Avoin chala, for the sin of failing to separate the chala tithe, not doing a foshas chala, not separating chala. Ein brocha b'mechunas, God's blessing is not bestowed upon stored produce. Umeiro mishalachas b'shorim, a curse is sent upon prices. And people sow seeds while others eat the harvested crops. Shneimar af ani es ezois lochem, I will do the same to you. V'ifkadeti aleichem, it's a pasuk in Amos, in Yechezkel, pasuk in Leviticus, also 26, 15, 16. Beholos shecheves hakadat mechal sinam divas nofesh zat v'luk za'achem v'achlu yivechem. Translate to, I will assign upon you panic, swelling lesions, burning fever, cause eyes to long and souls to suffer, sow your seeds in vain, v'achalu yivechem, for your enemies will eat it. Al tikrei beholo ela bachalo. Don't say beholo. Do not read the word beholo, panic, as it is written. Rather, read it as if it is written becholo or bechalo, on account of chala. So hey and chet are interchangeable, similar pronunciations, and are often considered interchangeable. Homiletically, the pasuk reads, on account of neglecting to separate the chala tithe, the people will sow their seeds in vain. In addition, the Gemara interprets the verse word v'ifkadati in the sense of diminishing. Hence, the verse also implies, because of the chala tithe, I will diminish that which you have already gathered. So we see the importance of separating chala. V'im noisnim is bochin, and if the people do give the chala tithe as required, they are blessed with plentiful sustenance. You should give the first of your dough to the Kohen, so that the blessing will rest in your house. Yechezkel 44, verse 30. For the sin of neglecting the teruma and ma'aser tithe, the skies are withheld from the precipitating dew and rain. High prices become the norm. Profit is lost. And people race after their livelihood but cannot attain one. The dry and the warm season still the waters of the snowy season. They have sinned to the depth. It's a pasuk in Eov 24:19. My mashma, what is the teaching? What is this teaching indicates? The dry, the warm season shall still the waters of the snowy season. Tana devei Rabbi Shmuel b'shvil no, today we can't give it to Kohanim because they can't eat it anyway. We burn it because the Kohanim are in a state of Tumah. But we separate a piece of when you make the challah, you separate a piece of it, put it in the oven, and you burn it. Separately, you burn it in the oven. But at least you can say the bracha. But this also can be applied in more of a general thing, the concept of ma'aser, of tithing, giving tzedakah and tithing. But especially with doing challah, separating challah, you got to make sure that you gotta make sure that it's being done with saying the bracha. If you make bread, if you just buy challah in the store, you're fine because it's kosher challah. It was already given. If you make it at home, you gotta make sure to separate piece of the dough. There's different laws of how much dough and when do you have to do it. But in general, if you make 5-6 challahs and you are obligated to separate. So, what is the meaning of the statement from Eov? Job said that the warm seasons steal the waters of the snowy season. They have sinned to the depth. What does that mean? She'oil chotu. So my mashma Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, a Bais of the Academy of Rabbi Shmuel has taught, because of the things that I God commanded you, that are performed in the summer, the separation of Tuma and Tithe, but which you did not carry out. The waters of snow, rain will be stolen from you in the winter. If you didn't behave in the summer, your winter is going to be compromised. And on the other hand, if the people do give meiser and tithe as required, mizbochin, they will be blessed. Shinema, how do we know? Because it says, Haviu eskola meiser beisoit, so bring all the tithe into the storehouses. Vihi teref bevesi, and I will have treasure in the house. It's a pasuk in Malachi chapter 3 verse 10. V'yehi teref bevesi, so that there may be food in my house. Uvachanuni na b'zay samar vaytzvos, and test me now through this, said Hashem, Master of Legions. Im lo eftach lochem sarubis hashomayim, if I will not open for you, if I will not open for you the windows of the sky, and pour out blessings for you without limit. You see, the blessings, on the other hand, for one who does, for those who give meiser, tithing would be an unlimited blessing. So today, regarding your question, David, today we only separate and burn. We take a piece of the dough and put it in the oven and allow it to burn. No, it doesn't have to be 10%. When it comes to dough, you just take like a handful. Take your hand, you take a piece of dough, and you put it in the. If you're making a normal batch of dough, take one piece of dough about this size, the size of your hand, and you put it in the oven and you burn it, and that's the foshes challah. You just need to say a bracha. Hold it in your hand and you say Arezu challah, and that's it. Next, my ad bli dai. What does it mean? What is meant by without limit? A blessing without limit. Amar Rabbi Barav. Yeah, meiser in general is 10%, but this is a foshas chalo. It's something different. My ad bli dai. What is it? What is the meaning of ad bli dai? Amar Rabbi Barav. Amar Rav. Rabbi Barav said in the name of Rav, ad sheivlu sifsesechem v'lo dai, until your lips wear out from saying enough. You will receive such an abundance of blessing that you become weary from saying that the blessing is sufficient. You'll be tired already from saying that the blessing is sufficient. Thing is that the word, the lips are not involved with the word dalet. Dalet is not lips type of a letter. So you'll be saying, you can go on and say die. Your lips will never be dried from saying die. Anyhow, bavoin gozel agoyva oile, for the sin of robbery, locust come forth, locusts come forth to destroy the crops. V'arov hoive, and consequently hunger comes about. Uvnei odom echem b'sar bnei v'nei sen, to such an extent that people, driven by starvation, will consume, God forbid, the flesh of their own sons and daughters. Shenemar, Shimu adovar hazeh poris habashan, hear this thing, you cows of the Bashan, Asher bar Shemron, you who dwell in the mountain of Samaria, Haishkes dalim, you who oppress the poor, Aritzoises Evenim, who crush the needy. That's also a prophecy of Amos. Amarava kegon han enoshe de mechoizo. The pasuk refers to people like the woman of Mechoizo. The ochon v'lo yavdon, who eat but do not work. It says in number 1 in the verse, the prophet uses the phrase "cows of the Bashan" to refer derisively to the wives of Israel, aristocracy, who he condemns as materialistically oriented, as stealing from the poor. Rava makes an analogy to pampered women living in his own day, whose lifestyles are so extravagant that their husband resort to theft to support them.
High maintenance.
High maintenance was nothing new under the sun. Was already then that they had the situation of high maintenance. So should all be blessed. Only good things. Ad bli dai, limitless blessings, and we'll continue with a short video on the laws of Pesach. We'll see you soon.